If we don't get a glimpse of Todo in the Jujutsu Kaisen sequel, then I might have a generational crash out on this app, because I know that my young at heart goat is still alive out there kicking and clapping. But honestly, who from the original JJK cast might still be around to make an appearance in this sequel, which takes place roughly 70 years after the events of Jujutsu Kaisen? In the very first chapter, we do get to see old man Yuta, but he passes away, likely from a broken heart, because we know that Maki has passed away. And honestly, those two in particular kicking the bucket does not bode well for anyone else, right? Because Maki is heavily restricted, which makes you think she's got to be in the peak physical shape, at least compared to a normal human, right? So you might think that that would help extend her lifespan, and yet she died before Yuta, right? So what chance does really anyone else have? And Yuta's another good example of this, right? Because he was one of the best RCT users we saw. So if RCT is capable of extending your life form by, refreshing your cells or whatever the case we want to call it, even he didn't make it past his 80s. Now, as far as old man Yuji, I do think he could still be around. We know that he also has a unique physiology which might lend itself toward a longer lifespan, but we do have this moment in the first chapter where it's mentioned that sorcerers like Gojo and Yuji are no longer in Japan. So could that mean that he too has passed away? And maybe, but not definitively. That could just mean that he's no longer in like the limelight or the current going-ons of the sorcerer world, but maybe not dead. Now, as far as the rest of the central cast, most of them don't really have a compelling reason to think they would live an exceptionally long time, other than the fact that they're sorcerers, right? And we know Gakuganji lived till he was at least in his 70s, so maybe they could as well. Now, Hakari's an interesting case, because might Jackpot help extend his life? Potentially. Megami and Nobara don't really have anything extra going for them beyond being a sorcerer. The same is true of people like Kirara, Inumaki, Momo, and all the rest of the students. So could they be alive? Maybe, but they're all going to be very, very old if so. Really, we have a better chance of seeing someone like Ui, because he was of the generation beneath our main characters, and we know that he's potentially the head of the new Shadow Style school, and maybe they re-invoked those life-siphoning binding vows. Other than that, it sure would be funny if we saw Takaba and he just hadn't aged a lick. And what's terrifying is that there's an actual chance that Kenjaku is still out there kicking, because we know that gag from the end of Jujutsu Kaisen could mean that Takaba resurrected him with his curse technique, right? And Kenjaku is functionally immortal with his curse technique, so he could certainly still be alive. Now, obviously, anyone could still be around. Well, not anyone, but people are living to like their 90s and 100s these days, so I wouldn't be surprised if any of the people that were still alive like popped up. But I'm trying to think if there's anyone that has some sort of like unique trait about them that may speak to them living longer than most, like some of the people we've talked about already. And really, I don't think there's anyone else that kind of fits that criteria. Maybe Angel. Like, again, we don't really know what like being an incarnated sorcerer does to you. Like, if anything, maybe that would shorten your lifespan, right? But like, I could see some like weird thing where like maybe Angel helps prolong Hannah's life. I don't know. But really, aside from her and the people we've already talked about, I don't know. Although I'll tell you who I'd love to see in addition to Old Man Todo, and that is Old Man Higuruma. Now, he was a bit older than the students and, the main cast, so it's not the best chances that he'd still be kicking around, but it would be so cool to see what he became. Now, I want to give a shout out to Jalen, who asked me to talk about who might still be alive in this sequel, and one character he brings up is Tengen. And if you've been watching my videos I've been putting out on Modulo so far, you'll know that I have mixed feelings about this right here, because this might be Tengen. Like, we might have seen Tengen in chapter 1, and thus, yeah, they're still alive, right? But it might not be Tengen and could just be another member of this alien race, which would open a whole other can of worms, right? That would mean that Tengen was likely originally from this alien race. And again, I have videos where we kind of dive deep into the implications of that. But yeah, this might be Tengen. Like, it might be her having reconstituted from that cursed state or whatever the case. Or It's a hologram, you know, who knows? It could be a million things here, but we might see Tengen. And then while we're on this subject, I got this other comment here from Tyre who says that it's funny that the people who were worshiping Tengen were called the Star Religious Group. So if Tengen does end up being an alien, that makes it funny that they were worshiping an alien from the stars. I want to call it a coincidence, but too many things line up. Were they foreshadowing this far back? And I certainly think it's possible, right? Like, again, we don't know if this is Tengen, and that's kind of irrelevant, right? But if Tengen was an alien, then that could explain why that group had that name, right? And we know that this religion or this cult kind of dates back a really long time. There's also some interesting things to consider with Angel and kind of the religious cult that she was from back in the Heian era, right? So this is one of the reasons I'm really excited about this series and what Gege is cooking. Because I know some people have been like, oh, aliens, like that's so stupid and out of nowhere. And I don't, like, it could be, sure, like, we'll see what happens, right? But there are certainly lots of pieces and interesting mysteries from JJK that I can clearly see a through line here. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of what Gege does with this and if those things do connect as far back as that. But at the end of the day, maybe it's a coincidence, but it's certainly possible that there's more there. And these ideas were something Gege was even cooking with back then. And then finally today, y'all, I wanted to throw in a couple of quick questions here I got from MX, starting with this one that says, I see a lot of Yuji slander and genuinely don't understand it. I think Yuji has had the best come up in the verse and that he's way stronger than people give him credit for. Recently, I saw someone make a video about how Yuji isn't special grade because he doesn't have the capability of taking on a nation single-handedly. What are your thoughts on that? And I think Yuji is special grade. Maybe not like at a snapshot of the final chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, but certainly like he would become that. And, you know, through up to Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, I think that he likely attained that status. Special grade is less about like your exact level of strength. Like, obviously you need to be strong, but it's more about having a technique that is capable of taking on a nation, like you mentioned. Like, that's the official designation for special grade, right? And Sukuna was special grade with the shrine technique, which Yuji now has. So Yuji will become special grade. Like, certainly, you know, power scalers get crazy. I have invoked their ire recently by just giving him his props for being mentioned with Gojo. Not everything is a hard power scale, guys, but Yuji certainly post JJK, as he continued to grow, would have become special grade. And then MX was asking about the Sukuna Mahoraga situation, wondering how exactly Sukuna tamed Mahoraga when he wasn't a part of the ritual in Shibuya. So like when Sukuna defeated Mahoraga in Shibuya, that shouldn't have counted because he was an outsider. And you are correct. And I actually have videos where we do more in depth on this because this is a question a lot of people have. But essentially, Sukuna didn't tame Mahoraga during that Shibuya incident. He tamed him after taking over Megami's body off screen. So we just didn't get to see it. But once Sukuna took over Megami's body, he did the ritual and tamed Mahoraga, and that's why he's able to use him in Megami's body. Anyways, y'all, that's gonna do it for this one. Let me know down in the comments who you think we might see a little cameo appearance from in Modulo. I personally think that like this won't really be a story that ends up focusing on that previous generation, but I do still think we could get like some fun cameos still, or at least some like name drops or references. So let me know who you guys think we might see in that regard. And as always, thank you so much for watching.